Guidance is internal. Ignition sequence starts. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Permission to board. Permission to come aboard. Permission to board. Permission to bring me aboard. Permission to come aboard.
Welcome to the Permission Granted podcast. Here's DA.
All right, welcome inside episode 7 of the Permission Granted podcast. Can't believe we're almost through a full 2 months at this point, and hopefully you're enjoying them. And remember, you can subscribe to them on iTunes by simply going to iTunes and searching DA's Permission Granted podcast. Also, you can subscribe to us on YouTube as well. Every single one of these episodes is available on YouTube via video. Easy to watch from your mobile device, so you can do that as well. That's youtube.com/The DA Show. This should be a lot of fun, this episode of the podcast. Coming up a little bit later, as always, Mraz and Brock will join us, and they will discuss the instant celebrity that Mraz has stumbled upon with crying about Derek Jeter, so that should be a lot of fun. Also, I'll talk to Mraz about that in a little bit as well. But now we have our long-form interview, and it is really a pleasure. I've known our next guest for years now, and we were both working in Boston. And I was at 98.5 The Sports Hub on radio, and she was working at Comcast Sportsnet New England. She moved on to the NFL Network to host NFL AM for a couple of years, where I did some guest spots as well. And now she is the host of Bleacher Report Spotlight on SiriusXM Bleacher Report Radio, which is 7 to 10 in the morning Pacific time, which means it's 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern time on channel 93 XM 208. Nicole Zaloumis joins us here on the show. Nicole, did I get that right? How are you?
You did. And, joining the dark side, it was bound to happen at some point.
Well,
I put on a good face in television as being so straight-laced, but, once they switched me over to radio, it was just all downhill from there.
Well, you can kind of have more fun at times in radio. I know you guys had a lot of fun on TV at NFL AM, but on radio, it really lends itself to being weirder and quirkier, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I talked about the official balls of Derek Jeter last week, and that was a really bright moment for my career because, he had 5 ball handlers, 5 authenticators on hand. There's usually only 2. So in his final game in the Bronx, they needed 5 guys to handle his balls, which was pretty awesome.
To be fair, you just wanted to say ball handler and handling Jeter's balls. That's the only reason you brought up the story. Anytime
you can say balls and Jeter and gift baskets, you're winning.
Well, okay, so what's your take on Derek Jeter's, as a guy who has kind of avoided the tabloids forever impossibly, and B, the farewell? What's been your take on this?
Well, I can't take credit for this, but on one of our sister programs on SiriusXM on Mad Dog Sports, they had said instead of having all of his former teammates out there to greet him, they should have had all of his former girlfriends.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a bigger celebrity draw.
Yeah, there's no question. Yeah. Do we need to see Andy Pettit or Mariah Carey and Jessica Biel?
Yeah, and I didn't know Jessica Alba was in that bunch.
Yeah, well, I mean, Jeter kind of has a type, if you haven't noticed, kind of a little exotic looking, right? Not quite straight-laced, blonde hair and blue eyes, a little darker hair, usually very thin. I mean, he kind of definitely has a type at this point.
Wow, you haven't put any preparation into this whatsoever.
Well, the problem
you
is...
have a bra size as well? I mean, you're pretty detailed.
Yeah. Well, the problem is that every guy in America is just drooling over every one of his girlfriends every 6 months. So you're like, how did he get her? Wait, how did he get her? Have you seen the graphics about all of his old exes filling out a baseball diamond? Dudes have thought a lot about Jeter's exes.
No, it's true. And putting his exes aside, I mean, this was a great way to send him off. I was never a huge Derek Jeter fan, but I am a fan of, the game of baseball, and I got to sit there and watch at least his final game in the Bronx. I felt like was a lot more special, obviously, than Fenway. And that debacle, what was the deal with the fake Aretha Franklin, by the way?
I don't know. Both you and I worked up in Boston. That's how we know one another. I was at 98.5 The Sports Hub on the radio side. On television, you were at Comcast Sportsnet New England. You came on my show a number of times. I did some stuff for Comcast. And so we were both up there in Boston. And, I mean, The Red Sox front office and ownership bends over backwards to honor anything, including other teams' legends. So it kind of didn't surprise me that it was a little cornball and cheesy at times as well.
Do you think, though, that it was planned to be that way while they were trying to show him respect by honoring him? They were disrespecting him by getting the fake Aretha?
I know. Well, this is also the same franchise that thinks it's fun to play a Sweet Caroline when you're down 14 runs in the 8th inning. So, I mean, kind of anything at this point. Isn't Fenway more like Wally World than anything?
Yeah, and it's a little out of touch. I mean, it's just a little old for me. Not the park itself, but just I think they need some new fresh blood in the marketing department.
Yeah, I would agree. I love Fenway, and I'm so glad they haven't torn it down to build a new stadium. I know a lot of Red Sox fans wish they would. I absolutely love it. I love Wrigley. But, I mean, the way that they sell their coffee table books and their ticket packages and their fake Aretha Franklin singers, I mean, the whole thing is kind of packaged in a goofy way.
Yeah, a little dated. Boston's struggling right now, or at least New England in general, coming off of the loss last night. I'm not going to lie, I was in a bad mood all day today.
You've been in a bad mood. Yeah, this is weird because you grew up on the West Coast, and then you moved to Boston, and boy, couldn't have been there for more than 2 or 3 years, right?
Right, but you know who also grew up on the West Coast?
Tom Brady.
Exactly.
And so you're not a Jeter fan, but you are a huge Tom Brady fan.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about two different cities, and I also didn't cover Derek Jeter. I covered Tom, and once you go Tom, you don't go back. I mean, so there's that. But my heart aches for him because, I thought that he showed up, looked really dapper pregame. Yeah. I thought this was going to be a great game for him to kind of turn things around, and it just solidified what we know this season as their offense is terrible, and so is their defense. And when you don't have an offense or a defense in football, I mean, you could help me out with this. You're not going to win games, right?
Right. That's usually a bad combination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The interesting thing is that Brady, after getting pummeled all night by the Chiefs defense and throwing a pick six and throwing in a triple coverage and fumbling a ball and just being harassed all night and having one of the worst nights of his career, post-game, his face obviously looked sullen and he was frustrated or disappointed. But, I mean, he really did look good still, right? He was wearing a good outfit. His hair looked good. I mean, how does he do this?
I don't know. I mean, there is that rumor about the fake hair.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Wait,
I mean,
what's
Wes
that rumor?
Welker's on the record with it, but, why we're on the topic, because everyone's focusing on LeBron and his hairline right now. Because, he had hair one day, the next day, we had a picture on BleacherReport.com that, I mean, he can't just go bald in like 2 days.
Right.
So clearly LeBron's getting some help. Brady, so I've heard, word on the street, there has been a surgical procedure.
You're
to put some hair
kidding.
back
So
up there.
He's got hair plugs?
That's the word on the street, DA.
Wow. How did I not know this? Did you pick this up recently or when you were in Boston?
I have, look. I have my sources.
Yeah, you
okay?
are. you are the Peter King, Chris Mortensen of hair plug news.
I mean, I'm not going to throw him under the bus and just go out there like Dion and just say,
right.
I have sources that wear suit and ties and uniforms that confirm this information to me. But it's important to know if you're into that kind of gossip rumor mill.
Look, this is about the most important news we would break on this show, so this is very good for us. So you spent your entire career in front of the camera, and then now you're doing radio. I've always loved having you on my show because I think that your personality translates so well to radio, but it is so different. How has the evolution been for you doing this show?
It's been an interesting transition because for 13 years or so, however long I've been in television, nobody wants your opinion. I mean,
right.
Let's be real, especially if you're a female, they just want you to sit up there and look pretty and be a traffic cop. So it's refreshing in the sense that I finally have a voice and I can show up in pajamas and I can look like crap and nobody knows. Nobody cares. So I don't spend an hour and a half getting dolled up and worrying about the vanity of television. Instead, I'm a lot more intelligent, which is exciting.
Yeah.
I have a voice, and I can actually express my true feelings and opinions as opposed to sugarcoating it or dancing it around it. Especially, that happened a lot at NFL Network, which is owned by the league.
So this kind of feels like a chicken or the egg. In television for females, do they hire women that just look good and don't have opinions? Or do women not have opinions on TV because their producers or their owners or the bosses don't want them to have opinions?
Well, I think there's a combination of both, because what happens is if you do have an opinion and you do have a voice, I mean, in our industry, you know this, you're the minority as a female. I mean, it's the nature of the beast.
Right.
So then if you get really outspoken, you become that pushy broad, at least in my past experiences. So it's a very delicate balance in how you approach conveying the message and getting your opinion across without being that annoying one that they don't want to hear from, at least when it comes to, management, producers, etc. So that was something I had to deal with for so many years. And let's be real, when I was in my 20s, I didn't have much of an opinion because I was still learning a lot and a little bit intimidated. But as you get older and as you get more experience, you get more confidence in this industry.
I thought that the Pam Oliver story has been really fascinating because to me, this is a story that needs to be told. I understand why television executives are looking for the next beautiful woman. I mean, it attracts you to the television. There's no doubt. For a guy, when you see a beautiful woman on the sideline, you see a beautiful woman in the host chair, you're just attracted and you want to watch longer, or you want to see what they're wearing, or you want to see what they say, even if you don't really care what they say. You're just like, you're attracted to that. It's the shiny ornament on the Christmas tree. But at the same time, when Pam Oliver kind of openly said, look, I realized I wasn't young and I wasn't blonde, and so I didn't have a future at Fox, it is very dispiriting as well, because there are women in sports that deserve having a platform and opinion and do a really good job. When you heard Pam say that, did any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, it did. I feel like, I'm being Pam Olivered a little bit at the ripe old age of 34 years old.
Oh,
but
you are getting up there, Nicole.
I know. Watch out. Pretty soon I'm going to need a wheelchair. There's a couple things here that I feel pretty passionate about. And the first part of your description of kind of females in sports is you just, you want to find that next talent, which so do coaches, GMs, owners. They want to find that next young quarterback that's going to develop. But not every young stud develops. So I think that you can't just put a pretty face up there to talk sports, because if they don't know what they're talking about, they're going to be exposed. And while men do love looking at beautiful women, they love their sports just as much. And so they want to make sure that that beautiful woman actually has a clue of what they're talking about. So I think that the pretty face is exposed if it's not immediate because they're being protected by the company. Eventually they are. In terms of, Pam Oliver, and that's kind of an interesting situation because she was replaced by someone who's competent. I mean, it wasn't like she was replaced by some 25-year-old that didn't know what she was doing. She was replaced by Erin Andrews. So you can't, she said, she can't really blame them or Erin for, taking her job. But the landscape has changed a lot because you are getting younger, less experienced, less expensive. And I'm wondering if this is going to be a shift and it's always going to stay this way, or if eventually it's going to be like I had just talked about, it's going to be found out that not everyone can do this job. It's very difficult, and it is something that you have to build up year after year, just like you as a radio host. I'm sure, 10 years ago you weren't as good as you are today.
Yeah, my shows were a disgrace 10 years ago. Now they're slightly less of a disgrace. So I find this interesting that you said that you kind of feel like you've been Pam Oliver, because on social media, whenever you would tweet out pictures of what you were wearing on NFL AM or your dress of the day or whatever, the likes were through the roof. Your comments were through the roof. Everyone was just kind of drooling over it. And I kind of feel like that's kind of always been the deal where that you've been, really well received by a male audience. So why would you feel that way?
Well, it's difficult. I have a new career in radio, which I'm really excited about. But when we signed on to do this show, I still wanted to do television in addition, or I still want to do. So you have to find the right job, the right balance, so you're able to do both. You did television in addition to radio because you were, appearing on NFL AM, the old show I used to host. So, you as well as I do that you can't do it all. So I do have to find the right job, but I think it's funny because I'm seeing jobs that I could do go to 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds. And so that's where I'm saying I feel like I am getting a little bit of that Pam Oliver treatment, because I then watch them, and to me, it's not comparable. And I'm not being cocky by any means, but, it's the equivalent of me going up against someone that's done radio for 10 years. And I'm glad that you said that you made a lot of mistakes, and now you only make a few mistakes. And when I asked you advice in starting radio, you had said to me, there's going to be that moment where you're like, oh, I wish I had that one back. And that happens, to me every day on the show. But there are some moments that are pretty brilliant as well, and a lot of fun.
Well, yeah, I mean, see, that's the thing, I think, in radio, is that you get 2 hours or 3 hours in your case. In my case, 4 hours. And when I was in Boston, I had 5 hours a night, where inevitably you'll make a mistake. I mean, look, when you're on the air for that much time, it has to happen, especially when it's all off the cuff. Where in TV, it's more structured, it's more scripted, etc. So you will make mistakes, and that's why I always encourage young broadcasters to go to some place where you could be on the air for a long time, per night or per day, so that you can make mistakes, because everybody does it all the time, and you just kind of wince after your show and be like, why did I say that, or why did I do that? But eventually you clearly get better for that. And that's what I wonder about your point about 20-somethings getting on the air on like network television. I mean, we see a lot of sideline reporters that are getting hired at huge positions for the NFL, big-time college football, and they're kind of like 2 years into the business. And then guys, like looking at them, but they crush them all the time because they have no credibility of what they're talking about. So there's this kind of like vicious cycle where all these women are being hired, and guys do want them hired. There's a value there for the executive, but at the same time, they come in with zero credibility and get trashed all the time, via social media or on the airwaves because guys don't respect them.
But it's your risk versus reward. I mean, so as the female, though, you have to wonder, are you doing any service to the future of your career, or how do you not take that position? What are you going to do, like turn down, like CBS calls and says, I want you to be on the sideline. You're going to say, no, I'm just not ready. Right. Give me 2 more years and then call me. No, you have to take it. But then I can't imagine how nerve-wracking that situation. I mean, I've been in situations like that where like, maybe I'm in over my head a little bit, but I have to grow somewhere. I mean, it's all about getting the real-time reps. So my heart goes out to those people that do make mistakes. And I've been there before early on in my career, and I still make mistakes. But you're right, because now in this day and age of social media, it could just tear you apart as a young aspiring journalist.
Do you have a tough time dealing with social media? I think maybe 5 years ago it would have hit my confidence more when people would rip me on Facebook or Twitter or whatever. But, as you get older and you hear more of it, to me, it becomes less and less. I don't personalize it anymore. It's not that big a deal. How about you? Has that been tough?
No, I mean, it's kind of a wash, because I feel like for every awful comment about me, there's one great comment. So it's pretty even. If I was just being slammed nonstop and no one ever said anything positive but my mom and my husband, then maybe we'd have a confidence issue and a problem. At some point you're like, maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. But I think that I get a tremendous amount of support, and so that's nice. And it is nice to hear people say, hey, I loved this segment today, or I miss you doing that and this. It's nice that people still care, because I've only been off TV for I think 3+ months. And people still tweet me each day saying, where are you? Where can I find you? I miss you. And that means a lot to me. It's nice to know that I did establish, a fan base on television. And it's something that you feel like, okay, at least there was an impression. I made an impression on people's lives for 2 years at the network level with the NFL. And then, working at CSN Boston and various regional networks.
Yeah, I think that's kind of part of this whole thing where you're in somebody's home or you're in somebody's life every day, and so they naturally establish a bond with you. And if you end up moving, it's very difficult, because then you're out of their life and they have this really personal connection. So when it goes back to social media, you do have this kind of wave of people that are, thanks so much for what you do. I love the show. I watch every day, or I listen every day. And then you have one person that's just like, you are the worst. You don't know what you're talking about. And the natural inclination is to remember the one negative instead of the 100 positive.
Of course.
Right. But as you get older and more mature in the industry, you just realize, like, it's way more important to focus on the 100 that have really good things that you made a good impact on their life versus the one that's just shredding you because they've had like a terrible day and they hate your guts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, you know, you were working at the NFL Network, and we've gone through, my gosh, now a month of just kind of never-ending, nonstop, awful news when it comes to the NFL. Do you ever think about, if you were still hosting that show, how difficult your job would have been? Because,
yes.
you know,
I think about it every day. I'm not kidding, DA. I think about it with every new storyline that emerges, because every day there's like 3 or 4 headlines of something new.
Yeah.
And if it's something that's monumental, like the Adrian Peterson beat up his kid following, you know, Ray Rice beating up his now wife, it just makes me wonder. And oddly enough, we are in a rental here. I don't get NFL Network, so I have no idea how they're covering it because it's a fully furnished rental, so I can't ask the landlord to get the NFL Network, nor do I really want it because I can, you know, turn to ESPN and other networks. But I know that they're tap dancing. They have to be around the situation. And I've been there where they've said to me, you can't talk about X, Y, and Z because you're owned by the league. I mean, my boss at the time was Roger Goodell, and I'm not a huge fan of Goodell right now. So if I was still with the company, how would I handle that? Oh, thank goodness I'm not.
Yeah, and there's a lot of talented people at the NFL Network that have good sources and good connections and good opinions. And, you know, clearly they can bring them out in some cases. But in some cases, I just feel like they would have to be neutered because inevitably, as you said, all this stuff that is kind of raining down on Goodell, he's kind of the de facto boss of that network, right? Well,
yeah, when you sign on, I mean, they show you the tree. And so that's what's difficult because you have to be careful about what you say and how critical you are. I mean, it's all 32 owners. Those are your bosses. And then it's Goodell, and that's your boss. And then it branches off into, you know, you have films, you have the LA division of NFL Network, and then you have the league offices.
So you've been hosting a radio show discussing these topics. You know, as a mother yourself and as a female in the business, how have you approached the Ray Rice domestic violence and the Adrian Peterson situations?
Well, we had some really passionate shows, and I think it's because right now my co-host is Kirk Morrison, a former NFL player. So this is really hard on him because he wants to defend the league that he played for, the league that he believed in, and he still has a lot of friends that are in the league. So his stance, and Kirk's a really nice guy. I'm not sure if you've met him, but if you know anything about him, he is a really nice person. And so it's hard for him to just go out and slam these guys because Kirk's take is, look, 95% of the guys, or whatever percentage he wants to put on it, are good guys in the league. But we do realize there are some bad ones. He wants to focus on the good guys. We can't right now. I know that a lot of networks, they want to, you know, for every bad story, erase that story with a good story, you know, like Devon Still or Devin Still. I understand the mindset there, but you have to understand that this is a very serious problem, not only in the NFL, but in our society when it comes to domestic violence, or when it comes to child abuse. And then you have these conversations and analysts like Charles Barkley saying, look, everyone in the South that's African-American beats their kids like that. That's how you discipline. So now you're getting all of these crazy takes, even defense of these actions, saying that it's okay. So I think for the last month, we as the media have been trying to navigate how to emotionally keep ourselves from, you know, getting too far involved in this, because we are passionate sports fans and we are passionate about the industry that we cover and we've dedicated our lives to. But like you said, as a mother and as a woman, I also feel it's important that I stand up for that 4-year-old boy that was whipped to a point of where he's at a doctor's office and they're holding a ruler next to lash marks. So it is a delicate balance, because I looked at his little legs and I saw those pictures. And my initial reaction when I saw the photos of Adrian Peterson, the first victim, was I tweeted out, should we even be seeing, or should media outlets even be showing these photos? Is it even legal of this little body at a doctor's office? And you saw not a lot of people showed the photos, and I think they've since been removed because of that reason. But it's disturbing. And why does it take those photos, and why does it take video of Janae Rice being knocked out and dragged out for us to feel that kind of emotion?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's almost like, and sports has become such an escape from every day now more and more and more as people are more frustrated by their jobs or their lives or their economic situations, whatever, that when reality hits sports, it's almost like, how dare you? Let's not even touch that. And I got a bit of a problem with people, to go back to your first point, that say, well, why don't we talk more about the good guys? It's like, well, yeah, there's a spot for that. And it's true, negativity sells. And so we tend not to focus on, you're not going to spend 4 hours talking about the guy that went to the hospital to visit the kids. And that's unfortunate, but that's reality for human nature. At the same time, it's almost like people, and I hear guys in the league say this, well, why don't we focus on the good guys more? It's like, this isn't quite the time to do that. I feel like that's part of just pushing the bad guys to the corner, as though we shouldn't have to talk about the bad guys because they're not all bad guys. When in reality, the impact here is the bad guys, because that's what changes society. That's what changes how we view this, right? That's what really creates change. And everybody that doesn't want to go there, to me, seems a little emotionally lazy just because sports is supposed to be fun.
Absolutely. And I think you can attest to this. It's been a difficult month talking about such heavy topics. You almost feel emotionally drained afterwards because you are putting your heart and soul into making sure that the message that you send is not only correct, but it's something that, has been thought out. You can't just spit out thoughts, because then you end up like a Charles Barkley. And you're saying you're defending the action of someone that uses corporal punishment against their child. But when it comes to the NFL, and I just think that, you see this with networks sometimes, and you see this especially with the NFL, is they take like a negative situation and then they try and counteract and erase it almost with a positive move. And you're seeing this with Roger Goodell right now. So he's been caught. We still don't know if he saw the first video. There is an independent investigation, if you can even call it that. Oh, but he's visiting the head of the hotline center for domestic violence, and he was moved to tears. So it's like, check in the Roger Goodell is a good guy column, because we have so many checks in the bad guy column right now. So you see this also with like the CTE and the problems that we're seeing with concussions. Oh, but wait, we have a heads-up football program. So guess what? Let's focus on the heads-up football program and how we're teaching the youth. I'm glad they're teaching the youth. I have 2 boys. I'm not letting them play football for obvious reasons. And I'm not a football hater. I don't want my children to become one of those quarterbacks that has brain damage, or players in general, or CTE, because the league isn't protecting them. And so that's my concern now, is what about the former players and the current players? Thank you for teaching the next generation how to play the game properly, but you have a problem on your hands when it comes to your current and former players that needs to be addressed.
Does the suspension by ESPN of Bill Simmons worry you at all about how much we can voice about these topics, or management of big-time media corporations?
I think it does. Every day. It makes you a little bit nervous, but at the end of the day, when you look at Simmons' rant, and I don't know how much you've played this, I only played it a couple times to be able to make a pretty honest opinion on this, and that was, he was fine until about 50% in, because I think it was fine that he said what he did about Goodell. I mean, I do feel like you have to understand that when you go up against the NFL, or when you go up against Goodell, you may not be getting a lot of job offers. They might not be knocking down your door asking you to work for them. But I felt like for the first 50% of his rant, he was fine. It was when he started like threatening his own bosses, when he started like going a little nuts, saying like, I can do what I want to, this is my podcast, this is it. And he just got a little out of hand with the threats that weren't necessary. But I do think if he wanted to, similar to, Olbermann, he hasn't been suspended, and he's gone up against Goodell in the NFL, big time.
Yeah, obviously CBS owns rights to the NFL on Thursdays and Sundays, and I have not been told by my bosses what to say, what not to say, which I'm very thankful for. I've never kind of run into that situation. nearly any of my jobs. One radio station that I used to work for, one of the ones in Kansas City, they were trying to get the rights of the Chiefs on radio, and so they were like, "Hey, back off," because I was going after the front office pretty hard. But that was the only time in my career I had bosses say, "Don't say that." So I hope you're right. I hope that the Simmons suspension is more about him kind of challenging his bosses and less about going after the NFL. But because ESPN has gone light on other people before, I kind of worry that maybe they're getting worried a little bit because the NFL is so under the spotlight, and that maybe they're overreacting to this, and that would be bad for everybody.
It would. I mean, and let's be real, they're so powerful. I mean, they're owned by 32 billionaires. And so for people like us that don't even, know what $1 billion buys you, looks like, etc., it is scary when you criticize people running a business of that magnitude. But at the same time, you have to look at yourself in the mirror each day, and you're putting, your own mark on society as a radio host, as am I, and what we say and the message we deliver. And I feel like that's the most important thing at the end of the day.
Before I let you go, why are we not getting sneak peeks anymore of the daily outfits? I mean, I know that was for NFL AM, but you still have your Instagram account. What's going on?
No, it's true. So as I told you, we're trying to buy a house down here in Los Angeles. This is not an easy thing to do. So we're currently renting a fully furnished unit, which means I can only bring like one box of clothes. So poor Kirk Morrison has to see the same outfit on rotation. I mean, he sees the same 10 outfits over and over again. And 90% of them in my new gig, it's pajamas. So, and baseball caps. And we had a joke going because for a while I only had loser baseball caps. That's how great, my life is right now.
Nice.
I was wearing Red Sox hat, a Brewers cap. I mean, what happened there?
What? Yeah, because people might not know, but your husband was a draft pick of the Brewers, and so you guys knew the organization well. They looked like they were cruising to the playoffs, and then a total collapse in the final 6 weeks.
Yeah, it was painful.
That's because
he was a career minor leaguer for them. 10 years.
They had not brought him up. They needed Mike in that spot.
It was their biggest mistake ever,
right.
Letting him go.
And now
he could have been their secret weapon.
And now he's just doing Mr. Mom, huh?
Yeah, he is doing a fine job of it.
A fine job.
Isn't that the job you want, raising a 5-year-old and a 2.5-year-old? Isn't it like what you aspire to every day?
Look, you know what? If my wife was the breadwinner and she was like, you know what, DA, you just take care of the kids, you hang out, and you finger paint with them, and you make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I will go tote the rock. I'd be like, all right, I got you, baby. I got you.
I wish it was that easy. It takes more patience than I have. So my hat is off to him because he's, like I said, doing a fine job. I just shove ice cream in front of him.
That's enough to get it done, right?
Yeah, at least for the few hours, yes.
Nicole Zaloumis is the host of Bleacher Report Spotlight on Sirius XM Bleacher Report Radio, which is 7 to 10 on the Pacific. And so fast forward to that 3 hours here on the East Coast. Channel 93 XM 208 as well. Follow her on Twitter at Nicole Zaloumis. And is your Instagram also at Nicole Zaloumis?
It is, yes.
Nicole Zaloumis joining us here on the show. Well, Nicole, we could always do about an hour with you, and we love you. And so thanks so much for joining us. And let's do this again here soon.
I appreciate it. It was so nice. I mean, we should make it, quarterly, if not more.
I like it. A quarterly segment with Nicole Zaloumis. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you, DA.
All right, welcome inside the quote-unquote side B. Maybe that is coming up later with Brock and Mraz, but good to catch up with Nicole Zaloumis here on the podcast, Permission Granted Podcast. A reminder, you can subscribe to us on both YouTube and iTunes to get this directly uploaded to your smartphone, your mobile device, your desktop, but also you can watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/The DA Show. So Mraz joins me now, and Mraz, I got to ask you about you becoming an internet sensation after crying about Derek Jeter. I mean, that's what everybody really wants to talk about. Did you ever think that was going to take off the way that it did?
None. I am still dazed and confused at the amount of publicity that got, And I was just weeping and saddened for the loss of my captain, and I cannot believe that it went internet-wide like that.
Personally, I'm very proud of the moment, not only because it gave our show a ton of national run and made places like Deadspin and The Big Lead, and you were on Opie and Anthony, and Boomer and Carton had you on. I'm proud, though, because I set it up. I knew this was going to happen. You had texted earlier in the day that you were getting all weepy. I knew the Ryan Callahan deal, how weepy you can get. And so me and Brock set up the Sinatra music under you. I mean, you walked right into the bear trap.
I'll be a team player here. As much as I love taking the bows and taking the bouquets and, hey, look at me, I'm all over the internet. You know me. You give me an inflated ego, I'm going to run with it. But what you and Brock did there, I think, gets overlooked in the whole thing. You were very funny. You were calm. It was like I was under the heat lamp. Even when you had that great comment there, if you go back and listen, a couple days later where you say, he's not dead. I thought you did an excellent job picking and prodding at me.
Well, the thing was, we knew this was coming down the pike. And now I didn't know it would go viral. Didn't know it would go national. But I did know that we could probably make you crack because you were already blubbering earlier in the day. And over text message, you were blubbering like, hey, guys, it's coming. I just want to let you know.
The fact that I had any tears left by the time the show started is amazing in itself.
Did you cry in the press box?
There was a little drop of a tear. I was very good at holding it together, but I can't lie. Yeah, I was emotional watching him, get up there.
So let's do the redux now. You cried. That was Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, your final home game. After you saw him retire on Sunday, taking the bows at Fenway, did you get misty-eyed again and cry?
See, I didn't. I cried on Thursday's last game at Yankee Stadium. When I saw him, ended, I thought a lot of stuff was very cool, but I never shed a tear on Sunday, even though that was officially it.
What was the highlight of going viral? I mean, it was amazing because every single minute of every day, it was getting retweeted by another media outlet. It was on some other website. Didn't even know it was supposed to be on the certain websites that you would go to and surf and just say, oh, CBS Sports producer cries over Jeter. It had to be you going on Opie and Anthony, right? Because they're like one of the shows that you've grown up with listening to.
Yeah, see, that was really cool because that also happened on Monday morning. So I'd gone through the whole weekend of all the attention, and then it was like an extension of it, and it was really cool. I've listened to them a lot growing up, the whole deal. It was awesome to be a part of that. That would probably be, the highlight of the whole thing going viral.
So is everything downhill from here on out for us? I mean, we tend to do a lot of funny stuff, I think. I mean, some of it probably falls flat on its face. It's not all very good. Some of it's actually terrible. But how are we ever going to top this, Mraz? Because for one glorious weekend, we were everywhere in the blogosphere and the Twittersphere and in the sports universe.
I think we have to find a way not to be one of these really bad 90s one-hit wonder bands where they put out a song, like Fastball with The Way.
Or Right Said Fred with I'm Too Sexy.
Exactly. Now, we can't force the issue, but I think we have enough material here where we use this as a building block.
See, the thing is, though, I don't think you can try to be viral. I think it has to happen. You have to be aware because you got to get it out there. I think a key for us getting it out there was putting it on YouTube. Because if we didn't have it on YouTube, I don't think all of these websites would have linked to simply like a podcast player.
I totally agree. It's all about the YouTube. And you're right. You can't have the mindset that you're going to go viral. I think we do enough stuff that naturally comes across as really funny. And that stuff that's so unpredictable is going to happen from here on out. And maybe, we add a few more to the YouTube page and we see what happens.
And maybe we feed some stuff to Boomer and Card on WFAN and the CBS Sports Network on the cable side of things, because when they get their hold of it, a lot of people listen, a lot more than listen to us.
Well, geez, if that wasn't proven last week, I don't know what was.
All right, so Mraz, internet sensation, you got to check out his video of him crying in the audio. It's if you haven't already, but it's been everywhere. It's got like 15,000 views at this point. So coming up next, side B of the Permission Granted podcast, the producer's side with Brock and Mraz. And I will see you next week and remind you that you can subscribe to us on YouTube, youtube.com/The DA Show, and on iTunes as well.
Welcome into Side B of the Permission Granted podcast. We are now at episode 7 here of the Permission Granted podcast. It's been a great, first 6 episodes that we've brought to you. I think that we're progressively getting better. I think the guests have been really entertaining. It's been a fun, first, almost 2 months here. Make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, Permission Granted Podcast. Check it out on YouTube, youtube.com/The DA Show. DA will upload that after the podcast is already uploaded to iTunes, so that gives you another medium to watch it. Also, DA will tweet it out. I will tweet it out at KBrockJR, as will Mraz at Sean Morash CBS. Speaking of my now famous cohort here, Mraz, how are we feeling? It has been a whirlwind 5 days for you with the whole Derek Jeter thing, which obviously we're going to spend a majority of this podcast talking about. But I was surprised that you were able to fit your big head through the doorway.
Please don't address me. Please go through my PR rep to come talk to me right now.
Yeah. See, you see what I'm dealing with here? The guy does a couple student radio interviews, and now all of a sudden he's got a PR guy.
Hey, you got to have it, right?
So let's just kind of go through the timeline of events, how all this occurred, because honestly, I still can't fully wrap my mind around it. Last week, it was, I think, Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Tuesday night, you went to Jeter's final, one of his final games at Yankee Stadium.
Right, it would be my final game.
Your final game, not his final game. And you were there covering it for the network, which is great, I guess, to have you as an ambassador for the network at Yankee Stadium. I mean, I could think of a couple other people we'd rather have there, but
I taste test their chicken fingers. It works out.
Right, exactly. So then you came on the show, and DA and I kind of knew that we could goat you into crying on air because in the past you have been susceptible to such things, a la Ryan Callahan being traded from the New York Rangers. And you got a little welled up talking about Mariano Rivera when he retired from the Yanks. So DA came up to me in one of the breaks outside of the studio and said, let's try to find a song that we can play at 5:20 because I'm going to talk to Mraz about being at Jeter's final game. And, we went through the setup. And, of course, I remember a couple days earlier, I had showed you the Derek Jeter Gatorade commercial with Frank Sinatra's My Way. And you got a little more than welled up there. There were a couple tears in the eyes that started coming down just from a commercial that's a minute and a half.
I never wanted to drink Gatorade so bad in my life.
Yeah, I'm sure you're the target demo for Gatorade. So then
it replaces electrolytes. Why wouldn't I be?
And so anyways, I decided, you know what, let's do My Way. So we put it in there, and true to form, DA got Mraz to start crying, and it was an utter embarrassment. As a fellow man, I have to, from here on out, revoke your man card. It has been taken away.
Well, that's ridiculous.
And will not be given back. So anyway, we kind of just thought it was just going to be another one of our quirky segments where Mraz is blubbering like a fool. And then about 2 days later, Friday morning, Boomer and Carton, which is the WFAN Sports Talk morning show here in New York, and it can also be seen on our TV side, CBS Sports Network from 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, that is, was somehow got a hold of it. Their update guy, Jerry Recco, came across it. I think one of our mutual friends who works at the Fan, led the horse to water. Yeah. So they played that at 8:30, I think it was their update. Next thing I know, I'm getting a text message, Mraz isn't answering his phone. Where is he? I'm like, oh, he's sleeping. Mraz goes home gets home at 7:05 and is asleep till about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
7:30, but okay.
Same difference. So I called Mraz, and Mraz woke up, and our conversation was really funny because I could tell that you were out like a light. Hello. And you have a really like something real quick. You have the worst phone answering I've ever heard in my life. When you call Mraz, or he calls you, hello, Ma, what? Like he's so disinterested, like you're interrupting something really important and he's doing.
I was sleeping.
No, it doesn't matter. You called me yesterday morning and you did the same. You called me while I was leaving work and you're like, hello. Can I get a hello? Can I get, what's going on, man?
I answer phones 4 hours every night for the show with
up.
Great enthusiasm.
No,
when I go home, the last thing I want to do is keep talking on the phone.
You're a disaster. So anyways, you get up and then actually, I didn't know this. You informed me of this on Monday morning. Your dad actually was watching because he's laid up. He had surgery and he hobbled down, 6 houses down and started banging on your bedroom window.
This was insane because obviously I'm out like a light and you get me an hour into my sleep and that's where I'm in the crux, the deepest sleep I am in.
Right.
And I had heard this. Basically, I had turned over because my dog was barking. At the same time, I didn't realize what was going on. My dad was knocking on the door. And at the same time, that's when I looked at my phone and called you without committing to understanding why my dog was barking.
No, you didn't call me. I called you. Let's get it straight.
I'm still confused as to what happened because I was in a deep sleep.
I called you twice. You didn't answer the first time. You answered the second time.
Okay, so I answered. That happened. Right. And then all of a sudden, I'm up, and I just hear my window in my bedroom, like the window is going to shatter. and just it's my dad pounding on you. You got to get up and call Boomer Carton. I thought somebody had died the way he was reacting.
That's hilarious.
So finally I get up. I get my wits about me. I just talked to you. I talked to him, and I ended up calling in and going on the show. And it was just I thought that was going to be the end of it. They had a little fun with me, and I thought that would be it.
And let's point out here, I stayed up to watch the Mraz hit, which happened about an hour later. So it was like 9:30ish.
I know.
I would say.
I mean, really, they kept me awake the extra hour. It was not a good scene.
Well, let's be honest. You're not the a primetime guest that you're going to get.
Well, they went to Jesse James over me. I mean, who you'd rather have on, me or Jesse James?
Jesse James, far and away. For those who don't know, Jesse James is Jesse James Decker. She is now the wife of Eric Decker, and they have some reality TV show. Anyways, so a quick thing about your spot on there. Mraz fancies himself to be a funny man. And, I give it to him. He has some ones that, they'll make me laugh and chuckle and what have you. But he took a big swing and a miss on with BNC. He tried to make some crack about what happened after the whole crying incident. He said, basically I went to the vending machines and I got some Oreos and that was it. And I honestly texted you this.
No, it's funny. It's a funny joke.
No, it's not. It was terrible. I honestly stared at my TV with a blank stare for about 20 seconds like, what the hell did he just say? That was a huge swing and a miss.
Listen, when you're mean, you drop back the pass. You take a lot of shots at the end zone. Some get caught,
you look
some
like Brady
drop.
on Monday night. I mean, you're just back there getting pounded.
Listen,
there was nothing.
I was on an hour of sleep there, and I didn't know what was coming.
Well, you should have known what was coming because you could have saved us all the headache of having to listen to that disaster. So that happens, and then apparently there's some website here in New York that I don't follow. It's called Bob's Blitz. They picked it up because they're avid watchers of Boomer and Carton.
Right.
So they put it up there. And then I'm chummy with the guy who runs Crossing Broad, which is the Philly version of Bob's Blitz, but is a little more well received. I think, it's more interactive, whatever. So I sent it to him. He put it up. Then next thing I know,
all this, by the way, while I'm sleeping after the Boomer Carton spot.
Right, and I didn't sleep on Friday until that night. I stayed up throughout the day. I couldn't sleep the whole thing. Not the reason we're doing this podcast. We're doing this. The reason for this podcast is for basically to bow down at the feet of Mraz, and
kiss the rings.
That will never happen. I get a tweet. I get a couple tweets. I get a couple texts from friends and stuff back home. Like, yo, what the hell is this fat guy doing? And I will show you the text messages. Everyone, none of them referred to you by name. All of them referred to as that fat coworker of yours.
Well, that's just disrespectful.
No, it's the truth. And then the Big Lead picked it up. And then Deadspin got it later that afternoon. And it was honestly, it was like a whirlwind, and it set the world on fire.
I think we were all kind of shocked by it.
Yeah, like every time that I got a new tweet or text from a friend or from a listener or a follower, I was like, I don't understand. Like I thought it was funny or whatever, but I didn't think that it would take over the world like it did. And for those,
well, I think the
the
weirdest part was that this had happened Tuesday night, and this was Friday.
Yeah, right. And let's give credit where credit's due. Boomer and Carton obviously put it on the map there, because if it hadn't gone on theirs, I don't know if we'd be here today. But that's all semantics.
Well, we'd be here on the podcast. We'd just be talking about Schwartz and, his kids' teams.
Right, soccer pictures tonight. I think.
Right, exactly.
So anyway, then all this, it kept evolving, and then I think Saturday Nesson up in Boston picked it up, and on Friday I think it was, you said you woke up and you did a couple radio interviews. I think you said you did 2?
I did 2, and I found out later on there was student radio hits.
So he texts DA and I in the group text, and he's like, oh, I just did 2 radio shows, Pub in the Network, Pub in the Show. And DA and I are like, oh, man, this is awesome. We're getting so much run off of this. Come to find out, they're 2 student-run radio stations. The guy's basically on Fordham 90.3 FM.
Hey, listen.
I mean,
we're big in the dorms. We're big in the dorms.
I couldn't get over the fact, though,
that
you
just snort, by the way? And you call me a pig at the trough.
Oh, my God. I couldn't get over the fact that Mraz was tooting his own horn. Basically, hey, listen, I'm doing some big radio spots for the couple, you got little Timmy and Billy doing, freshmen at San Diego State calling up Mraz, trying to get him on the horn to do an interview about him crying. So, but credit where credit's due. He ended up doing a big spot with
Opie and Jim Norton.
Opie and Jim Norton on Sirius XM. They're, I think they're 6 to 10 on the morning show.
7 to 10.
Okay, whatever. I don't have Sirius. So he does that. So that's actually a huge spot for us. And I listened back to that That's an interesting interview. So if you have a minute, I think it's on
on Bob's Blitz.
Yeah, it's on Bob's Blitz. And, I mean, that thing got derailed really quick. Like, the first 5 or so minutes weren't even discussing you and crying over Jeter. It was some Deadspin story that I can't reference because...
No, but if you don't have kids around, it's worth a listen.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely not safe for work and not safe for kids. The conversation got out of hand really, really quick. So that part was funny. And then, they killed you for crying over Jeter. But I thought they took it easy on you because from what I understand, they're a pretty tough batch of cookies.
They're very tough because they do a lot of these Deadspin stories and stuff, and they always destroy the guys. And you know what? I stepped up, and I was, I felt very confident on the phone with them, and I think I was received pretty well on the show.
Well, let's go into a little tidbit, a little nugget here that you dropped on them on the show.
What is this nugget?
That's sticking in my craw that I can't fully wrap my mind around, just like this whole story. They asked what you did for the show.
I told them I was the producer.
And
I said, I do get some run on the show. I'm kind of like the sidekick.
Let that sink in there for a second. Mraz just referred to himself on a national morning show.
As quote-unquote kind of like the sidekick.
No. You didn't say kind of like the sidekick. You're like, I'm basically the sidekick. Last time I checked, what does your title say on CBS, on your pay slips?
Producer. I'm the producer. Of the show.
It doesn't say anything about a sidekick, right? You're not the Andrew Bogish of the John Feinstein show.
That's not what I meant.
That's exactly
what I meant. What I was trying to say is...
you could see how Mraz's head is growing exponentially as the days pass on here. He basically went from being the executive producer, the guy who answers the phone and cuts the fails and books guests, to now he's the sidekick of the nationally syndicated DA show.
I get like a segment a night where DA will toss me a couple softballs and I get up there and into the batting cage, right? I mean, there's a lot of nights where my voice is, falls on deaf ears, but I would say I contribute a lot to the show. And what do you want me to do there? Flail in the wind? I had to pump myself up.
Well, that's the whole thing.
You and Schwartz both destroying me for this.
That's a bad look. And if things weren't so, testy last night between the three of us, me, you, and DA, I probably would have brought it up to DA. I'll save that for tonight. Because I don't know if DA knows that. Did you get ahead of the story there?
I got ahead of the story. I let him know, and I played the audio for him.
What was his response?
I don't think he had a problem with it.
Yeah, well, let me get in his ear for a little bit. I'll make sure that he has a problem with it.
You're going to start the smear campaign on me?
I'm the king of the smear campaign, so yeah, that'll be happening soon. So, I mean, just give me a rundown. What was going through your head all weekend? Because, I mean, I'm sure that you couldn't believe how much run that it was getting.
Well, and I think a lot of times, the people close to me, whether it be my wife, my parents,
right,
stuff like that, they were like, man, this is awesome. How do you feel? And, I felt like I wasn't giving them, a valid enough, this is cool answer, because I was really just still shocked and confused as to, what was going on. Because
right, why was this happening?
Because we check all these websites every day, and everywhere you looked, if you were a sports fan, you saw my fat face, so to speak, crying.
The big lead and Deadspin are the first two sites that I check in every night. So to see your ugly mug and DA, pointing and laughing in the background,
it's unbelievable.
It was like, what the hell's happening?
Now, I mean, between my personal Facebook page and my phone, I was getting texts from literally people I haven't spoken to in 5 or more years going, dude, is this you? I can't believe.
What, are you looking for a handout thinking that you're going to get a big payday?
Right, exactly. Basically, it's 5 days, I'm back in my hole.
You got a couple, fifth distant cousins that have, you haven't spoken to in 30 years.
Right. No, but it was cool, and I had a family party on Saturday, and everybody was coming up to me. So,
nice.
And you know how I like to be the center of attention. So it was nice being the center of attention all weekend. And I peacocked a little bit, and I soaked it up, and I enjoyed my 15 minutes of fame. But it was, to be honest, it was pretty cool. But at the same time, I just walked away very, my head was spinning all weekend. It was very surprising.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, for your not only your face, but your whole persona and everything to be out there for the world to criticize. I mean, that's got to be an awesome experience, yet a little humbling, I think, because I don't know how many of the comments that you read on the different sites.
Of course, you had to read them. I think in a situation like that, you just own the moment. Listen, you did it. You own the moment. People are going to say what they're going to say, and you know what? You're going to be made fun of, so you just laugh it off.
Doubt.
You laugh it off, and you don't let it bother you, and that's the way I do it.
So you're still standing by the fact that you're still a man because you cried over Derek Jeter.
Real men cry. Men cry.
I agree that
real men cry. And can we get something straight, too? It wasn't about Derek Jeter, the person. It was about the passage of time and what Jeter represented. And I think any Yankee fan my age can cry about that.
This is something that you are formulating on the fly here, because you know that you cried over Derek Jeter retiring. This whole, evolution of everything being about, the lapse of time and
That's
and
what it's
everything
about.
That's not what it was about originally. It was originally about Derek Jeter being gone and your Yankees are going to suck for the next 10 years.
No.
That's exactly what that was about. It had nothing else to do.
First of all, I got a good football team and a good hockey team. I'm not worried about the Yankees sucking for the next 10 years. They've given me enough in my lifetime.
Yeah, okay. You're right. Real men do cry. A lot of guys cry at weddings, guys cry at funerals, blah blah blah, because they're emotional things. Now, to kind of try to seamlessly transition here, I am going to a wedding. I will not be emotional at it because
you have no emotional bone in your body because you're a crank ass from Philly.
That's not true. I do get emotional over certain things. But this wedding, I am a little emotional about why and when it's happening. A friend of mine who I haven't I've seen and whatever, we've kept in touch, whatever, invited me to his wedding this Saturday, October 4th. Have you looked at the college football schedule yet?
Listen, we've turned the page to October. This is great. Right off the bat, Ole Miss, Alabama, you got to get into it in the SEC on CBS.
There are 6. Well, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of games leading up to that, but that's a good synergy promotion of the network there.
I'm all about it.
Of your company, man, Mraz. There are 6 top 25 games. 3 of those 6 games are between SEC opponents. At noon, you got Texas A&M, Mississippi State. Then you go to the 3:30 matchup, and you got Alabama, Ole Miss. 3:30, you got Oklahoma, TCU. 3:30, you got Stanford at Notre Dame, which is a great matchup and will maybe be one of the better games of the day. 7 o'clock, you got LSU at Auburn. And at the nightcap, you got Nebraska at Michigan State, and one of the only relevant Big Ten games of the weekend. I'm furious because I'm going to miss most of the 3:30 games because the ceremony starts at 3 and then there's everything that happens after. So I'm going to miss a majority of these college football games. And now this he's a real sucker too. He's a Penn State fan. Penn State is on a bye week this week. So he's getting married on the Saturday. He did. And I give him credit for that. But he's inconsiderate in the fact that everyone else there is going to miss out on all these great college football games.
Listen, it's a terrible, I will say, an unbelievably terrible job by weddings that happen on Saturdays and Sundays in the fall.
Yeah.
That's when you have your Friday night wedding. Number one, it's going to be a little cheaper anyway when you do it on a Friday night in most cases.
Right.
But you can't be doing the Saturday and Sunday weddings unless they're like one of these trendy weddings that involve around the football where people, are doing their college football wedding.
Unless you got the big screen behind the priest while he's doing the once-over, I don't want to see it.
Right. No, you can't do it. And it's funny you mention that because a couple of years back, obviously everybody knows I'm a big New York Giants fan.
Right.
It's when the Giants were in their run in between Super Bowls there where I think they were having second-half collapses, but they were a good team. The Giants, I'll never forget this, were playing the Arizona Cardinals. It was a 4 o'clock game.
Was that a Kurt Warner-led team?
I don't remember, to be honest with you.
That's surprising because you're pretty good with those.
I don't remember. I remember that Madison Hedgecock scored a touchdown in the game. That being said,
Hedgecock?
He used to be the Giants fullback.
Nah.
Listen.
I don't remember.
This is the little stupid things I remember.
Give me Hynoski any day of the week.
Oh, yeah, of course. You got to have. I love Hynoski.
Hino the Rhino.
But bottom line is, it was that my now wife's mother's second wedding, and she was getting married to another guy, I guess my stepfather-in-law now.
Is that? Yeah, I guess that would technically be the
right.
Do you call him Dad?
No.
Okay.
Call him by his name. I love them. Great, the whole deal. But they were getting married and having like a real wedding, not like a dinner. I mean, DJ, the cocktail hour,
the whole shebang.
A Sunday
for a second wedding and the third wedding. So, all intents and purposes, this is a 5th wedding here.
Exactly. Sunday. 2 p.m. in the afternoon, football
What?
Sunday. Giants are at 4 o'clock versus Arizona.
Get out of my face. I would have told them no chance I'm showing up to that.
I mean, you got to be kidding me. So, I mean, me and my girlfriend at the time, now wife, fought for about a month before it about this is ridiculous.
I can only imagine how furious
I'm
Danielle
not missing
was.
Giant. I'm going nuts. She goes, you could DVR the game, the wedding's going to be over, by 6 o'clock. Might have been at 1 o'clock. It was over at like 6 o'clock.
Doesn't matter.
So, it threw me off. So
that's really, and you think like, that's really sticking it because they have to know that there are a ton of obviously it's a big New York wedding.
Yeah,
everyone that's going is
a lot of their family
New
Jet
York.
fans. That's a 1 o'clock game, so they were all upset about it too. But naturally, you have to do what you got to do, and you got to go to the wedding. And it's listen.
I'm telling her no chance.
Put it
Sorry,
this way:
sweetheart.
I wouldn't be married now if I didn't go to that wedding. So, I mean, in the greater scheme, I guess I made the right decision. But bottom line is this: by the time the wedding ended, I couldn't hold on for the DVR. I got home and I watched the 4th quarter. That's how I know Hedgecock scored. It was like the only touchdown I saw in that game.
So you didn't even wait to rewatch the entire game. You just jumped in. That's like watching a
No,
sequel
but
without watching the prequel.
Now the other problem is you're sitting there with the guys and they're all checking their phones at the time and stuff like this, going, "Oh, well, this one's
wait,
up
how
this."
long ago was it? Because social media couldn't have even that prevalent back then.
But back then you went to the the ESPN.coms and stuff like that right on your phone.
I didn't even have a smartphone back then. I had
but
a
people
flip phone forever.
People had it. That's where you got it. This wasn't 15 years ago. You forget. You still had access to this stuff 5 years ago.
Did we?
Yeah, you did.
Did the world exist before Twitter?
Facebook, it was around 5 years ago. There was access.
I feel like the world didn't exist before Twitter, but maybe that's just.
But the point being, it is and this is a memo to anybody out there. Now, if you're listening, you're probably a sports fan.
Listen, I'm going to tell you when I'm getting married, and that's not coming anytime soon. I already have the dates set out. New Year's Eve. That's it.
Well,
I will
got
not
college football bowl games.
Nah. New Year's Eve at 8:00 at night. You get married. You do the whole thing then. Do the ceremony at 7.
Right?
Yeah. There's some pointless.
You would have missed the A&M Duke game.
Who cares?
I mean, can we get
we'll
this
have
thing?
a TV. You know what I'm saying?
I thought I sold it great. May.
No, yeah, but you did it Memorial Day weekend, and that threw a real hitch into my plans for the weekend.
Forget you.
Again, we had fun and everything, but the Memorial Day, that's another thing. People who are not shoregoers or travelers during the summer don't understand the importance of Memorial Day, the 4th of July, and Labor Day. Anyone who gets married on Memorial Day weekend or Labor Day weekend, get out of my face because we're not going to be friends. That upsets me.
That explains a lot. I guess it explains why your check was a little light, huh?
Please.
I'm just kidding.
Get out of my face.
Just kidding.
That's a nice little shot by you, a little parting shot on the way out. So, anyways, if you haven't seen or heard the Mraz phenomenon crying over Derek Jeter, it's on every major sports website there is, minus like CBSSports.com and ESPN.com. But check out Deadspin, The Big Lead. Go to the DA Show YouTube page, youtube.com/The DA Show. While you're there, watch Derek Jeter, and then you can listen to this podcast as well. If you're not subscribing to us yet, subscribe on iTunes. And make sure DA will tweet it out after it's posted. DA on CBS, I will tweet it out after it's posted. And as will Mraz, at Sean Marash, CBS. Enjoy the weekend. What are we at, week 6 of college football already, Mraz?
Oh, yeah, week 6, college football, week 5 of the
Wow.
NFL.
Man, that's crazy. It's flying by
Before you know it, it'll be March Madness.
Don't wish away football season like that. Anyways, enjoy the games this week, and we'll talk to you again next week.